Welcome back to Newswire. The ground stop is over, lifted at 2 o'clock, but the scene is far from clear. LaGuardia Airport, tragedy just before midnight. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy will be briefing in any minute. 2 pilots are dead after a collision on the tarmac. Let's get you out to Andrew Kraft, who is there live at LaGuardia with more. We know people are injured. You know, it's terrible to see this. There's even a report that the flight attendant in her jump seat ejected but survived, Andrew.
Yeah, Bianca, we have seen that report. Very, very tragic. These 2 pilots losing their lives in this accident. We're hearing from the CEO of Air Canada. He's calling it a tragic day for the airline. But as you can see behind me right now, we have a perch over runway 4 here at LaGuardia. If my photographer Mike can just zoom in so you can see the Air Canada flight, and you can also see the fire truck that it collided with. And it's a very active scene. A lot of investigators now have descended on this scene. We're going to hear from Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy and FAA Administrator Brian Bedford in just moments here at Terminal B in LaGuardia to hopefully answer some of our questions about how this all transpired last night around 11:45 p.m. And one of my main questions is when it comes to the staffing situation, the picture there inside the air traffic control tower in the moments leading up to the collision. Was it fully staffed at the time? That's one of my questions here. We're also hearing new audio from inside the tower at LaGuardia during the moments before the collision. Listen.
Truck 1 in company, Florida Delta. Frontier 4195, just stop there, please. Stop, truck 1, stop. Stop, truck 1, stop. Stop, truck 1, stop.
Now, Flight Radar 24 showing that the plane was traveling at 100 miles per hour about when it made impact. We also know from the Port Authority, they essentially said the fire truck was on the tarmac at the time because it was responding to a separate incident with a separate United plane that had reports of a foul smell on board. That's why the fire truck was on the tarmac at the time. Now, listen to some of these passengers describing what they went through as they exited from the aircraft. Listen.
Fear. I mean, it was pretty shocking. I didn't know what to expect. We were honestly sleeping and then landing, and then all of a sudden, boom, woke up in shock. Just didn't know what to do.
One of our friends was several rows back from us, and we walked past him on the way out because he was trying to find his glasses, and his nose was totally broken, bleeding on his face. A lot of people smacked their head against the seat in front of them.
So, Bianca, as you can see behind me, you do see some flights taking off and landing. That's because LaGuardia is back open, but only one runway is open thus far. There were hundreds of cancellations. Earlier today, the airport was shut down for several hours, and that's all going to be rippling through the schedule throughout the course of the next couple of days. We're going to see delays and cancellations because of this collision. And as you know, the situation is already so mucked up with so many of these TSA lines winding around, getting so much longer now that ICE, though, is on scene at so many of these airports at President Trump's direction over the weekend. They are here at LaGuardia. I've seen some of them outside security, in baggage claim, also at some of the gate checks as well, just kind of mingling in with the passengers that have now come back to LaGuardia now that it's open. The president says he doesn't want them to wear masks. He also said if ICE doesn't alleviate some of these bottlenecks, he could potentially call in members of the National Guard. Bianca, back to you.
Well, good to have you there. We'll monitor and keep us apprised of Transportation Secretary Duffy. Thanks, Andrew, for that live update. Our panel now, let's bring in aviation attorney, aerospace engineer, former pilot Arthur Rosenberg to get some perspective on this, and also Republican strategist attorney Ford O'Connell on just the mess at our airports and Democrats shutting down the government still. Arthur, I just want to play a little bit more of what was recorded and what's been released on what happened moments after this fatal impact.
Frontier 4195, I got the word that we're going to be closed for a little while. If you weren't prepared to return to the ramp, let me know.
Yeah, we got stuff in progress for that, man. That wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know I was here. I tried to reach out to my staff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier. I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
I mean, air traffic control, you can never make a mistake, but it's such a high-stress job, Arthur. What do you make of where we are today? The stress at the airport's also elevated as well.
Yeah, well, again, first off, we want to send our condolences to the families of the flight crew who lost their lives and all the injured passengers. So the controller was probably, the control tower was probably not fully staffed. LaGuardia is set up for 60 controllers, air traffic controllers. There were actually 30 who were actually manning their posts. We don't know exactly how much of that 30 were on duty that night. But obviously, when a plane is cleared to land, they own the runway during that period of time. The controller who cleared the fire truck to cross the runway made a mistake. It never should have been done. He apparently immediately recognized it, but it was already too late. Yeah. The fire truck wasn't listening or crossed, and there you have it. But the bottom line here is we have an air traffic control system which is overworked, not properly staffed, equipment which needs to be replaced. Add on the TSA, and you have yourself a mess.
Yeah, you do. Ford, it's a mess in so many ways. This is tragedy that there are people who are dead. And you also look at the lines outside and say, how could it get worse? Well, you know, you have to wonder. Sean Duffy's been trying to deal with some of the things Arthur's addressed as far as air traffic control. What do you make of the political fallout that ICE agents are there? And you know the left's also going to say they don't want ICE agents there. There's reports about someone that was apprehended for a short time in San Francisco. More bad headlines, but it's all of the Democrats making.
Yeah, that's the absurdity of this entire thing. Democrats are throwing a tantrum because Donald Trump has secured the border and deported illegal aliens, murderers, and killers. So in response, they're going to make air travel more dangerous at a time that we're engaged in a military conflict. Think about that. And then they're going to be sociopathic liars saying it's Republicans who refuse to fund DHS. Think about that for a minute. That's how absurd this whole thing is. And let me tell you something. I hope no more problems happen, but it's very likely that this is going to happen again in some form or another.
Yeah, we pray nothing happens. And, you know, when we look at sort of, as Ford mentioned, concerns about sleeper cells, we want to make sure that no one watching, you know, TSA people calling, officials calling in, Arthur, sees it as an exposure or weak spot for our country. Outside of, you know, what we'll learn from the investigation, Arthur, what's your advice to people out there who are traveling? Their spring break was ruined. They stood in line. Some of them are still 6 hours today in Atlanta. This is really dysfunction, I think, like we haven't seen in a long time. It makes people not want to fly.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say this. Whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, it really doesn't matter. Safety first above all else is the mainstay of our air transportation system. It should be bipartisan politics, not partisan politics. As far as your passengers, as far as people who are traveling, all I can tell you is get to the airport, leave yourself plenty of time. You know, it'll be an anxiety reliever for you. It helps the TSA. ICE is kind of lending a hand now to TSA. They're taking over some surveillance roles. Maybe that'll free up some TSA people on duty to do their job. But we're in the middle of a chaotic situation. But people should know the system is safe.
So Homan's been talking to folks on the Hill, Ford. Over the weekend, President Trump says he's not going to support any deal to fund Homeland Security until Congress passes the Save America Act, which is a whole other issue here. So Elon Musk came in and said, I'll pay for the TSA agents, richest man in the world. He can cut them a check. But what do you make of the way the Save America Act, which is for obviously voter ID and making sure people who are here who shouldn't be voting aren't voting, is being woven into the DHS fight? Is that going to be a winnable way to get funding and get Save America Act passed, Ford?
Well, it needs to get passed. It should get passed. I mean, you're talking about 80% of Americans who pretty much agree with the SAVE Act. I think when we look at why the Democrats are having this shutdown, over the border and deportations, remember, that's tied in exactly to the Save America Act. Why is it that we should not be able to certify the citizenship of our voters, know who's voting in our elections, and make sure they show up with photo ID? Pretty much every other country in the world agrees with President Trump, but somehow the Democrats in Washington, D.C. are the only ones who don't want to have common sense on this because they want to continue to cheat in elections. Remember, illegal immigration, safety, and the Save America Act are all connected.
Yeah. Well, my mom was a flight attendant for American for 30 years, so I kind of grew up on airplanes, and I grew up before there was TSA, before we had all this security. And, you know, it's you know, the industry right now, we're also seeing prices rise because of oil prices. You had Scott Kirby, the United Airlines CEO, saying jet fuel prices double in the last 3 weeks. So, Arthur, you're in the aviation space as a former pilot. I mean, I know no one's coming back. It's never going to go back to its heyday where people actually dressed up and flying was the friendly skies. But are we ever going to get back to civility at all?
Yeah. So the bottom line is the dollar. When TSA, with Department of Homeland Security, when air traffic control, the FAA are properly funded, we get the controllers back online. We get, for ground services, we get TSA back online, fully staffed. We need more people, better equipment to deal with an explosive air traffic control system. We have 3 million passengers traveling every single day, 45,000 flights. We need a redo, equipment, personnel, and hopefully we can get back to some way, shape, or form of what flying used to be like.
It is no joke. Arthur Rosenberg, Ford O'Connell, thanks, guys. And maybe Elon's checks will cash for those TSA workers who are certainly struggling. Good to see you all.
Thank you, Bianca.
Thanks, guys.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.